anyone working in business or finance, I think a personal brand now it's not optional, it's everything. What you want to do, and I see so many young people get this wrong, is you want to go and offer value, right? And ask for nothing back. That's such a powerful thing that's been able to drive my growth. Build something and people will come.
Hello and welcome back to Cutting Edge. In today's episode, we're joined by Eddie Donmez, founder at Creative Capital and a LinkedIn top voice. Eddie started his journey in finance as an associate at S&P Global before pivoting to content creation at Finimize and then starting his entrepreneurial journey.
It's really hard to outwork someone that's passionate about what they do. I found myself studying markets when I'm on holiday, and it's because I truly love it, and it's really hard to fake that.
Eddie fell in love with finance at first sight. He was fascinated by financial markets and obsessed with learning as much as he could from Bloomberg, CNBC, and the FT. This led him to start Creative Capital, bridging media and finance through content creation, distribution, and strategy. He is now living the dream, writing and sharing top-quality finance content with his dedicated following. Now, let's get started. Eddie, thank you so much for joining us today. Could you please kick us off with telling us about your career in finance, your journey in finance, and where did it all begin?
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I guess it started at university, did the traditional route of studying economics at Loughborough, worked at S&P after that, Standard & Poor's for those that don't know. Worked for a financial training company for 3.5 years where I had a wide exposure to the kind of finance industry, training lots of interns and analysts at major investment banks and asset managers, as well as students kind of all over the world. And then, began my journey as a content creator and now a founder of a business.
That's a very quick summary, very well explained concisely, and I'm really keen to dig a bit deeper into that journey and how you got from one step to the other. And in season 1, we really focused on the university to landing the first job. On season 2 today, I'd love to explore your journey within finance and then also your transition to content creation. But perhaps if we start with earlier on in your career, you mentioned S&P, and I think you worked with one or two other companies as well. What were some of your key takeaways and learning points from those early on roles?
Yeah, I think, so kind of zooming in back to university, I think I did the traditional route of studying economics because that's what people will tell you to do, right? Go to university, study economics because it's a smart subject, and that's what successful people go on study and then go on to do great things. But when I actually went to university and began the modules, and an economics degree, for those that don't know, quickly kind of turns into a bit of a maths degree. And the passions that you had for learning about the world and different subjects at A-level kind of dissipates quite quickly. And you get very bogged down in the theory of deriving Lagrangian functions and optimization functions. And I didn't end up studying finance subjects until the second semester of my second year. And by that point, I was extremely kind of disappointed is the wrong word, but disillusioned, I think, by the lack of real world practical application of the subject to the real world. I think that in university, you very much are disconnected from the news, what's driving financial markets. Like if you ask me to, build a financial model or what's going on with oil prices or what's going on with treasury yields, I wouldn't be able to tell you. And that's the kind of honest truth. But I knew a lot of formulas and theories that were not that applicable to day-to-day life. So that actually inspired my later career decisions that we can kind of get onto. But as soon as I started to study finance, I fell in love, which is not, something that you hear too much. But the fact that it was so real, and we were looking at real companies, and we started to look at derivatives and an option pricing and things like that, I really became fascinated with all of that. And I began to then, in my second year type place, began to watch the news and became obsessed with learning as much as I could on Bloomberg, on CNBC, reading the FT, and I just became immersed in that world of having to learn so much. And I think with anyone, the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know, which is a kind of contradictory statement. But I just became obsessed with learning about different market views and listening to portfolio managers and analysts on these TV programs. And I just realized how much I didn't know, but I just found it so fascinating how geopolitics and politics and finance and macro all intersect. And those things I'm still extremely passionate about today. I didn't have a spring week. I very much was late to the boat. I think with me, I never had the dream of becoming an investment banker, and that's kind of God's honest truth. I never dreamt about working in finance and that kind of flashy, fast-paced lifestyle. I was kind of, I would say, on autopilot. I was like, yeah, let me study something and I'll work it out. My father's entrepreneurial. He's a property developer in Turkey. My mum's a dentist, which is kind of completely different, but she also started her own practice, private practice. So there was a bit of entrepreneurial kind of stuff there. But my dad was always the one that would push me to building something, and you have to have your own business. But he was always, because he's not British born, it was always about tourism and travel. And he's like, why don't you go and work for TUI and learn the ropes and things like that, because that's obviously all he knew. That would have been a terrible decision to do. So I kind of persisted with my finance, and then ended up, after doing a placement year, which I met some great people. It was in financial analysis, FP&A, for those that don't know. It's kind of building forecasts and budgets, and it was in an aerospace company, a manufacturing company called Textron, which is a big Fortune 500 US company. And I was in Excel spreadsheets and building all these kind of forecasts and things like that. Met some great people, but found it incredibly boring. Could not do that. For a full career. I think what's so important for people is not to just follow what they think they should do, but really look deep within yourself and look at your hobbies, look at the way you interact with people, look at the way you conduct yourself and what you spend your time doing, to really drill down at what do I actually enjoy. Everyone tells you, okay, go and be an investment banker, go and work in M&A because it sounds like this sexy career, but it would drive me insane. And when I went to work for S&P, which was, I would say, a bit of both, it was I was in the global market intelligence division of S&P. S&P is a fabulous company in terms of the credit rating, amazing business model, huge amount of data analytics and credit ratings, obviously, but the solutions they have are really kind of cutting edge. I think people don't really know that because they associate it with just the credit rating agencies, upgrade, downgrade, fallen angels, that type of thing. I was in the market intelligence division, and I was working very much with portfolio managers and investment banking analysts all over the world that were trying to utilize the S&P kind of solutions and analytics to build financial models and things like that. And I did find that really interesting and fascinating. And I think what really I loved was working with clients, but being able to convey not only kind of what they should do to build this model or, access this data solution, but really provide a market view as well. Because I'd become so obsessed with this markets and financial, commercial awareness is what it's also known as. Being able to combine the two was really, I'd say, valuable. And that's when you hear or you get off the phone with someone and they go, wow, thanks. there's some of them were American. That was my bad American accent. But they'd say, thank you, you really helped me here because you kind of connected the dots rather than just go do the bare minimum of this is what you need. If you can also point them in the direction of what they should be looking at or what is also could be interesting for this, that's really where you kind of add a lot of value. Moving into kind of the next firm I worked in, I was involved in training a huge amount of students. It was a small company. I was kind of running the startup within the startup, if you like, training students all over the world, training analysts all over the world in investment banking, sales and trading, M&A, asset management, and running training programs to get them desk ready. I think that was really satisfying a burning desire for me. So I left S&P after 15 months or so, before the grad scheme even ended, because I was kind of, again, a little bit disillusioned. I really wanted to do something that mattered to help people, students, young people. Okay, rewind back to a couple of years ago. I was that lost, anxious person that didn't know what I wanted to do in life. And I could see comparisons to The Thief of Joy, all these people that had their head screwed on, not from the fact that they were smarter or more intelligent, they were better prepared, right? And that's usually what you find with people that lived in London, because they see Canary Wharf, they walk around and they're immersed in that world from early on, or they have parents that work in the industry. If you live outside of London, you don't have that inspiration, right? And you don't really, it's not the done thing for most people that live outside London to do, especially if you're from a small town or something like that. So I really wanted to help students get trained up and break into finance. And I'm a hugely strong believer of the fact that anyone, regardless of gender, race, ethnicity, degree, subject, should absolutely get the job that they deserve. And the good thing about that is that these firms are seeking out these candidates, right? But the problem is, the easy thing to do is to go to Oxford, to go to LSE, to go to the top target universities, hire this guy who studies economics and management, because you're never going to, lose your job over hiring someone like that if they make a mistake. The challenge is trying to level the playing field in that kind of diversity and inclusion space. But that starts way before, right? To get people trained up and desk ready, and also give them the confidence that they can actually succeed in that job. So I was traveling to Barcelona and to all around the UK, of course, all over Europe, and running online sessions for students in the Americas as well. And using what I had learned and what I thought that they needed to break in, and giving them that, before they would have been able to utilize that in their applications and things like that. So that really kind of satisfied a deep, yearn for making an impact. But I realized that you can only do that, for example, in a session, right? It could be in a classroom, 50 people, 60 people, 100 people, or it could be an online session if you're lucky enough and you do correct marketing, or you make people aware of this type of event. You can get maybe 200, right? That's a great result, I would say, for like an online session. But with writing online, you can potentially reach millions, right? So that's when I began writing on LinkedIn, before LinkedIn was a thing, basically. It was delighted to announce I'm joining this company. This is probably 2 or 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. And I saw an opportunity to share my market commentary and also career guidance and, breaking into finance and, how to use Excel, that type of thing. Before LinkedIn was the content creation platform that we know now, which is really interesting because it's now allowed me to build a business around that I know we can kind of touch on later.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I'd love to take it back to the root, really. 2 points you mentioned. One is the disconnect between higher education and finance. Having studied economics and finance myself, I completely relate to what you're saying and what you study in A-level, which is a big picture, zoomed out view of the world of finance and how it's all intertwined. and then you get to your undergraduate degree and you start studying things like maths, statistics, and econometrics, which obviously, granted, gives you that econometric and economist hat on that you need to do that kind of analysis. However, it's not so much focused on the world of finance and the practical skills and knowledge you need to thrive and succeed. Even in my case, I took economics and finance, and like you, it was in my third year we started to specialize in corporate finance, derivatives, and these kind of securities. But nevertheless, you persisted, you got your degree, and you were saying in second year you started finding out more about the world of finance, the developments, and that's what seems to have interested you. And when you say you fell in love with the world of finance and you're able to clearly communicate to some of your clients what's going on and connecting the dots, what is it about that process and what is it about the world of finance that you find so fascinating?
I think because it's so real, I think that the best characteristic for any young person is intellectual curiosity, right? I think I was watching an interview with Ken Griffin, the founder and CEO of Citadel, and he was saying, if you think that you finish learning when you finish university, you're completely misunderstood. The real learning starts in the 40 years of your career where you're learning every single day. And that's how you really progress. That's how you actually succeed in your career. If you think that you just finish university and that's it, you're done, you've got your job, you don't learn, you're really mistaken. And I think if you can have that intellectual, and I think actually everyone has that intellectual curiosity, it just depends on what, right? If you ask anyone, what are they passionate about? You know, what do they really spend their time doing? If they're not working, they'll tell you because they obviously spend their time doing something, right? The real magic, I think, happens when you can align what you're really passionate about with things that make money. Always helps, but with your career, right? And it doesn't have to be one-to-one. If you ask me, if you ask yourself, if you ask anyone, do you enjoy every single day, every single minute? They'll obviously tell you no, because there's lots of things that you have to do to and have done that you didn't enjoy but were very necessary. But if you can align what you're passionate about and what you're interested in with your career, like I really think you're onto something. It's really hard to outwork someone that's passionate about what they do. And I would definitely vouch for that because I found myself studying markets when I'm on holiday, right? And my family, my partner, why are you reading the FT like by the pool or, when you're on holiday or on weekends? And it's because I truly love it. And it's really hard to fake that, right? If someone says, why are you doing this? No one's going to do that unless they truly enjoy it. So I kind of realized, okay, well, I'm clearly onto something here. If I really do love it, and I didn't even think like that. I just was doing it on autopilot. So I kind of realized that there was something there. And when I started to get traction on LinkedIn and, I'd get portfolio managers and analysts, and I think people that were just much more senior than I was at that time, I was pretty young in my early 20s. And when they're kind of saying great post or great analysis, or can you tell me what you think about that? And they've been in the industry for 20 years, 30 years, you're like, wow, okay, well, why are they asking me? And I must be on to something here, right? So that kind of writing on LinkedIn, my market commentary and guidance and analysis really was kind of a game changer, I would say, for me in my career. But I think it's a wonderful thing for everyone, right? Everyone's got that opportunity because the internet, so I regret to call it social media because I just see it as media now. If you think that you have something valuable to say, nothing is stopping you, right? You can go on LinkedIn, you can go on Twitter and share that commentary, share that analysis, share your point of view. And the wonderful thing about media and the world we live in is if you're good enough and people respond to that, the world's your oyster, right? And you can be 16, 15, you see all these people, 15, 16-year-olds making money. I'm not saying like on e-commerce and things like that. I'm not really talking about that. I'm talking about students, young people. If you really are passionate about something and you feel like you're knowledgeable, you should start sharing your views, because it's incredible with network effects and the way social media is structured that you can catch the attention of someone or something, really important for your career. The types of people that were messaging me and have messaged me, and the ones that like I can call friends now, is like, it's like I'm living a dream sometimes, because I always think back to that young person I was at student, like at university or trying to break into my career, where these people don't give you the time of day, right? Because unless, it's not that they're bad people, they're just so busy, right? They have jobs, commitments, whatever. So if they are giving you the time of the day, you must be doing something that's worth their time. So for any young person kind of listening to this, you should really kind of work on your personal brand. And it's quite a washy phrase, but what it really means is if you've got something important to say, you should say it.
On a side note, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. You'll be doing us a massive favor. You can keep up to date with our latest content, and the bigger the podcast, the bigger the guests. Our previous guest on the podcast did mention this concept of ikigai, which I think you alluded to, this idea of combining what you're good at with something that you absolutely love. And it definitely seems a theme across the finance industry that junior employees, 1 or 2 years into their finance role, whether it's front office investment banking, private equity, asset management, sometimes start to ask questions about, is this what I want to do for the rest of my career? And it's quite dangerous, because in one sense, you're so early on, you've just tried one role, that it's very easy to bucket finance within that one role that you've tried, when there's just a whole sea out there of different roles and opportunities available. And then fast forward to what you mentioned about content creation and the opportunities that arise out of it. If you're young, I think it's a clear separator when it comes to networking and applications, to be able to demonstrate, not just on your CV, but on your LinkedIn profile, just how interested you are and the insights you can provide. And one question I have is, what opportunities have arisen from your side, having just started to post about these kind of stories and market updates on LinkedIn? And then a follow-up question would also be, it's one thing that you were passionate about financial markets and how they worked, but did you also find over time that you're passionate about sharing these and giving your own take and opinion?
Yeah, there's quite a lot to unpack there, but I'll start with the disillusionment of young people that are working in these roles in M&A, in trading, and they kind of have this semi-midlife crisis early on. I think finance is a wonderful industry, because it obviously is a bit of a baptism of fire for the most part. If you're on a kind of deal team, or you're on the trading floor at whatever young age, 20, 21, and you're managing either money or helping portfolio managers run money, or you're facilitating trades worth hundreds of millions of dollars. It's quite a lot of kind of responsibility, and I think because it's so intense, it does grind people down. But I think it actually starts way before that. I think it's really about trying to align yourself with who are you, looking deep within yourself, what really gives you energy, right? What do you spend your time doing? And when you have, I'd say class myself as a bit of like an extroverted introvert, if you like. Doing an M&A role is just not for me, right? If I'd learned that before I tried to go into M&A, as an example, then I wouldn't have potentially pursued that, right? If I knew what the day-to-day, the minute-to-minute was actually like, and actually working on pitch books and financial models at 3 a.m. in the morning, because people say like there's long hours in finance, like there is long hours in finance. That's not a joke. Like people are working till 3 a.m., 4 a.m., back in the office till 7 a.m. and then week after week, day after day, if that doesn't give you energy, like working on project-based work, then you shouldn't do it. But you need to know that beforehand, right? You need to do the role. Same with trading, right? The stress, the pure psychological turmoil that a trade being offside, or the responsibility of managing either your own money or client money, or dealing with your boss, is extremely psychologically tiring, and the intensity of that can kind of really wear you down. But again, if you love that and that really gives you energy, which I would put class myself in that bucket, then it's a wonderful career for you. So again, in terms of people burning out and like realizing, oh, this is not what I signed up for, or I pursued this because it was prestigious or it had a high salary, it really starts beforehand, which is no good for the people listening to this that are 2 years into their M&A career and thinking, oh God, I didn't know what I was really signing up for. But it's never too late, right? I think everyone's path in their career, in success, is windy. There's devastating lows, and then there's highs, some greater than others, and then a lot of it is just like baseline kind of standard work stuff where nothing's really happening, and you're like, am I really going anywhere with my career? You get to 23, 25, 28, whatever it is, and you're thinking, is this really how I wanted my life to go? And I kind of had that moment at S&P where you're like, I really want to make an impact, right? But I think what finance gives you is, one, salary, right? And the opportunity to have a bit of flexibility if you have worked for a couple of years and you've built up that base where you can afford to do something a bit riskier because you have a little bit of capital behind you. But two, it gives you that badge of credibility, and whether we like it or not, everything is a signal, right? It's a tick box. University is a tick box. Where did you study? Who did you study? What did you study? Who did you study with? Did you do a spring week? Oh, if you got into Goldman, then you must be pretty good. Where did you work before? Whether you like it or not, all of these things are signals, right? Because people are making decisions with limited time, limited resources, and I'm talking mainly about HR departments and talent departments that are looking to hire. They're under a huge amount of stress and time pressures. And imagine they're receiving, I think, Citadel received hundreds of thousands of applications for 69 places. How do you think they sort these people out? Do you think they're going through each person's CV or giving them the actual opportune moment to showcase their skills? Of course they're not, because they don't have time, right? Which is a problem, right? In terms of the graduate recruitment process and how people are assessing talent. But yeah, I mean, it gives you that credibility to do anything you want. So in terms of a career, and it also teaches you hard work and resilience and grit. They can be misconstrued with being tough and like stuff like that, but it's actually about being adaptable. It's about being flexible. It's about being a good team player. All these things that like finance actually teaches you. So when you ever want to go and do your own thing, just like you have and I have, you've got that wide kind of variety of people skills backed with the credibility and the signals that kind of gives you.
Yeah, knowing Citadel, they probably developed an algorithm to just sort through the bulk of their CVs before the next screening process. But the point you touch on about the underlying tangible benefits that career in finance gives you, I can't stress enough. And even if someone were to realize in 1-2 years their first role or the finance industry in general might not be for them in the long term, the amount of skills, the network, and like you said, the capital that it puts behind you at such an early age is invaluable, and to the extent where not many industries, perhaps tech as an exception, can compete on that level with the vertical learning curve and progression that finance analysts and juniors get from such an early age in their career. And then in your case, you use that platform to begin a career in content creation within finance. Can you walk us through your transition from the world of finance in your 2 roles to a content creator? And as part of that, you built a platform, I believe. You were doing bits on a podcast and newsletters. And how did you combine your love and passion for finance with content creation? And when did you first start seeing real traction in this role?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. Thank you for asking it. I think I used first my platform on LinkedIn to grow that audience. So for example, now to today, I'm doing about 150 million impressions, let's say views of my posts and content in the LinkedIn feed, right? And the beautiful thing about LinkedIn is that you can see exactly who's viewing your profile, who's viewing your post, who's commenting on your post. And because it's now become such a hotbed for, let's say, B2B activity, it's where people do business, right? It's the new age of, it used to be a bar or, a dark room, whatever. Now it's, social media, and it's media more generally. So when I was sharing my kind of market views and I started to get traction, that only gives you more and more confidence when you see the caliber of people that are interacting with it. And it gives a huge signal, right? Because if someone else sees someone that they know, let's say senior level, or someone in the industry engaging with that type of content that you're producing, it can be extremely powerful, right? Again, talking about signals. If this person's looking or watching, Eddie's posts, then it must be pretty good, right? So I'm going to take a look and follow him. And, then a bit of a flywheel starts, where you start to be able to build up a reputation and your own personal brand for being a knowledge leader. So I think influencer, content creator is somewhat of a dirty word in finance. And what I mean by that is that we've all been conditioned by the Instagram influencer or TikTok finance guru through the pandemic that was, flogging meme stocks and crypto. I think everyone is a content creator, right? If you write on LinkedIn, you are a content creator. Simple as that. You are creating content. So I think the better phrase and how LinkedIn puts it is more of a knowledge leader, right? In a particular space. And that can be in any space, right? That can be in tech, that can be in finance, and you can get way more granular. So it can be investment banking, it could be M&A, it could be law, could be, macro, geopolitics, even at an asset class level with fixed income or equities. Like some people are fixed income specialists. And, if you want to know about that niche, you should follow this person because they're so granular in what they go into. So it can be extremely powerful from that perspective because it leads to huge opportunities. And I've now built a business in Creative Capital, which I'm the founder of, where I have, again, an unbelievable opportunity. And I smile when I think about this because, again, I think about that young person that couldn't get a job, was struggling to break in, didn't know what I wanted to do. Now I get to partner with the world's largest asset manager, the world's largest hedge fund, pension funds, family offices, amazing startups, scale-ups, that few that I'm going to be sitting on the board of. And I get to advise them on finance, content creation, again, just content, the marketing side, the brand side of how you want to be, how you want to come across. And the reason I'm able to do that is because I'm have been so obsessed with content that I know every minute granular detail about why something works, or why that's performed, or what would resonate with people. We're really in a people and a psychology business of why that works or resonates with someone, and then the result of that is gets engagement, which again gets attention. And we're in the attention economy where if you can dominate attention and be the first to say something smart or to be there with super high quality stuff, there's huge opportunities there. So I partner with all these, let's say, larger financial institutions to help them craft their message and get their message out there. So obviously there's the world's smartest people that sit within these organizations that are producing research and, analysis. And what I help them to do is get that out there. The distribution's extremely powerful because if you're just writing, and it doesn't matter how good what you produce is, if no one sees it, there's no point, right? That's the God's honest truth. And people are spending tens, hundreds, millions of pounds or dollars, euros on this stuff. And if no one sees it, then there's not really any point of you doing it. So my niche is very much helping these big financial institutions and things like that with my knowledge of finance and people to get that out there, all the way down to startups and scale-ups as well. I think we're in an extremely interesting time in history, I would say, and with technology and finance and the emergence, let's say, of the retail investor and how technology is really democratizing access to financial markets. And again, on the institutional side, which is where I spend a lot of time, being able to share that message to different institutions, across different institutions, to the people that really matter, the decision makers, is a really unique time. And the blend or the line between institutional investors and institutional people and the retail investor and even young people is converging quite dramatically. Why is that? Well, it's the asymmetry of information is quickly closing, because people like me. So many, I would say, to kind of reverse a little bit, many people that are content creators or build businesses around content, particularly in the retail investing space, very much take the view of, I'm against Wall Street. Like they're hiding something. They're keeping their secrets back. They want to take advantage of the retail investor or just general people. I share a completely opposite view, where I think that they produce unbelievable research. All the people that I love listening to on Bloomberg and have for many years, and I'm reading the research of, I'm like, everyone should have access to this content. That's the way I have always approached it. I'm like, because I love it, and I think, wow, if everyone had access to this, the world would be a better place, right? So there's actually a big closing of that information gap and the access of information and institutional grade research and quality. I try and bring that to everyone, right? But that might be institutional people that are reading it as well. It might also be retail investors or young people as well. So I take the view of I want to bring Wall Street kind of to everyone in the City of London and the research that is produced. And that's allowed me obviously to build this kind of reputation and brand and platform and now business, where I can, help my clients, achieve the attention and the goals and at the end of the day, revenue that they desire. And, I'm extremely blessed to be able to do that. But it all starts with pursuing what you love and what you're obsessed with.
A great example of that convergence between retail and institutional investors is the GameStop saga that happened last year, and obviously that being turned into a movie now. It goes to show just how times are changing, and obviously things like Robinhood and these other mobile apps are now putting more and more people into the world of finance and trading and investments. And I think by nature, people see this as a means of making passive income and things on the side. So there is more of a demand. And if you look on Google Trends, the word finance is just so heavily searched. People are interested, not just for the sake of following the industry, but for the sake of personal finance. So there's just so many angles to approach that. It's almost unlimited content in that way. And where that feeds in with yourself, and you've obviously been incredibly successful, having gone on to be a top voice on LinkedIn. You've really built up a personal brand, and I'm sure the audience would love some of your nuggets of wisdom of what is your personal brand, how did you develop it, and what is it that eventually led to you becoming a top voice on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just touching on your point there that, you said interest is exploding in finance. That's a wonderful thing. And the GameStop saga, people like to focus on that because it was what grabbed the headlines. But really what it was about was people took an interest in finance and trading and financial markets. And that's a wonderful thing. Yeah, okay, people shouldn't be, punting on, the AMCs and the GameStops and things like that, taking leveraged bets, and they need to be responsible. But what it did was spark information, right? And you might not make that right decision in your 20s or, teenagers, right? You might not make that right trade. But with trading and life, it all comes through experience, right? So making that mistake is a wonderful thing as long as you don't lose your house or, something, take a leverage bet that spirals out of control. it sparks that interest in the world, in finance, which I think is an amazing thing. The next thing that comes from that is education, right? And that is extremely important. Responsible investing, but just the awareness of markets and how you should conduct yourself in markets. I think like ETFs are a wonderful thing because it's teaching the wonderful world of compounding, and that's compounding in money and returns. But then it's also with education, it's the compounding of life and learning, right? If you learn something every day, every minute, if you're on these platforms like LinkedIn, and that's why I like LinkedIn, because it's a very it's almost like a safe place, right? It's not like Twitter that comes with all the animosity and, it's a murky world with anonymous accounts and things like that. You can see exactly who's commenting, who's writing, their faces there, their firms there, so they're never going to want to say something, harmful or bad, which is what keeps it clean. And you never mind someone arguing with you. Like, that's a brilliant thing, right? Someone debating you, that's a wonderful thing, to have that place or platform that you can have that conversation. So that's extremely powerful. In terms of how I became a top voice in LinkedIn, I mean, it was probably my proudest moment, I would say, having grafted away every day and anyone who has had any level of success, no matter how small or big, it's not an overnight success. It's a slog, it's a grind, it's weekends, it's nights, it's, just being truly obsessed with markets and commentary. If it's 11 o'clock at night, 1 a.m., 3 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., whatever it is, and you're reading and researching about this new thing, this new trend, this new angle that you can share your views and knowledge. It's a daily graft, and that's compounded to lead to that. So that's awesome, and it was one of the proudest moments I've had. And you only need to look at who was also a top voice to see why that was so almost shocking. So Wei Li at BlackRock, who's the chief investment officer of the BlackRock Institute, was also a top voice who I've met, and she's a wonderful analyst, a really nice person as well, and that definitely comes across, but just insanely knowledgeable and also very well versed in how she communicates that view. And then Janet as well from RBC is also a wonderful commentator. Again, super senior, super experienced. So to be alongside those people was kind of surreal. And again, you have that imposter syndrome of like, I don't deserve to be alongside these people, but because you've dedicated so much time and effort, and the engagement that I get clearly has, struck a nerve, or, has resonated with the right people that, you think, okay, well, maybe I deserve this. But it was a really, really cool experience. I think in terms of my top tips, let's say, of how someone should build a personal brand and start writing online and start sharing their views, we could be here for hours, because this is what I help people with. But to kind of summarize it maybe in a few points, I think the first part is get started, which is obvious, right? The worst thing you can do in your university days, or even when you're younger, is do nothing, right? You can be paralyzed by that kind of fear of not wanting to do something, or not thinking you're good enough, or not thinking that analysis is good enough, whatever it is. If you don't say anything, no one's ever going to know who you are. You're never going to be able to even start to differentiate yourself. So the most sensible thing to do is to start. And no one is perfect in what they do. If it's content creation, the first YouTube video you make is going to suck. The first podcast you make is going to suck. First post you make is going to suck. But over time, if you keep at it, you learn to iterate. And if you become obsessed with what works and what resonates, and that's quite an easy thing to do if you follow engagement, right? Because okay, well, that resonates someone. what feature of this post or commentary or analysis do people really resonate with? Okay, well, I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it in the next post, and if it works again, then clearly it's working. And then you do it again and then it doesn't work. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's weird because it worked before. And then you want to experiment with lots of different content types. And what I mean by that is multiple things it can be interpreted as it could be a written post, it could be a video, it could be, short form, long form podcast. You need to find, what you're really good at, right? For me, that's LinkedIn writing. But it could be for some people, YouTube Shorts, right? It could be Instagram Reels, it could be TikTok, it could be Twitter. You've got to find that platform that really works with you and you like to be on because you're going to spend more time there. And I think just some really simple things is make everything super high quality. If you're posting a chart, if you're posting a photo, make it something that you would like to consume. I think that's why one of the reasons I was able to, to become a LinkedIn top voice was because I'm so I love content and I love financial analysis. It's really about, okay, what kind of things do I like to consume? And I always try and embed that in my content. Like if I write a post, I'm like, I wouldn't read that. Like this is either boring, it's, too jargon heavy, or it doesn't catch my attention, then it's not good enough. Simple as that. So you really want to produce things that you would like to consume. And again, it doesn't have to be finance. It doesn't have to be like investing or banking or anything like that. Just pick something that you want to become a knowledge partner in, a knowledge leader, and that you have that knowledge in, right? You have in your head something that people would pay hundreds, if not thousands of pounds for. Everyone does. You just got to find what that is, and put it out there, put it out to the world, test, iterate, change it up, experiment with lots of different content types and angles and, structures of the post or the video. I think a great example of this is Mr. Beast, is someone I really think is awesome. And I think, people see content creator or YouTube star and the silly videos he sometimes does, but behind it is just like a wonderful entrepreneur and someone who's not scared to put something out there and iterate and really grind. He did the video where he said something 1,000 times or something like that, and he got no views for 2 years on his videos, but he persisted and then got a bit of traction and then doubled down and then iterated and then did more of that and then got a bit more capital to then reinvest back in his videos and production, and was doing something that people like to consume. And he followed the data, which is the most important thing. Follow the data, because the numbers don't lie, and you'll stumble onto a trend or a pattern that you think, okay, well, this is working, let me do more of that. And now he's been able to build a business and businesses off it, which have been widely successful.
And that's a great example of exponential growth that you see in content and often you don't quite get to see in finance, that if you do have a voice and you do persist even a matter of years, and even in the case of Mr. Beast, he was just putting out everyday gaming commentary videos, and then he would pivot and then pivot again and then re-strategize, and he'd see what's working. Both YouTube and LinkedIn are great when it comes to data analytics and knowing what posts work well, what resonate and what don't. And sometimes it can be as much as a surprise to the content creator as for the audience as to, oh, I didn't realize they would engage with this. But it goes to show the process that's involved and getting acquainted with the process, enjoying it as well, as much as for content creation as with finance. And in my case, when I was working in M&A, realizing that it's not just about closing a deal, it's about the behind the scenes, the team you're working with. The Investment Banker course by Financial Edge Training helped me to secure a full-time role in investment banking. During my third year at university, I came across the Investment Banker online course by Financial Edge Training. This equipped me with the valuable skills needed to succeed in investment banking, such as financial modeling, valuation, and analytical skills. By enrolling in the course, you can get the same training as new hires to the top investment banks, with our instructors being ex-finance professionals from the likes of Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and Barclays. When you pass the course, you'll be awarded with a CPD accredited micro-degree certificate, which can easily be added to your LinkedIn profile. This will demonstrate your achievement to top Wall Street banks, helping you to stand out from other candidates in your applications. Get started now, just like I did with the Investment Banker by Financial Edge Training. And then overall, that process and love for content led you to create Creative Capital. And is that creative process still very much the same as it was a year ago, a few years ago? Or has it pivoted for you? Have you re-strategized, and are you trying different things?
Yeah, I think you've always got to be nimble to what's resonating, what you want to experiment with, what's trending, what's, going to resonate with people. And yeah, I've started with written content, LinkedIn. I've done a bit of TikTok, many podcasts. But I love podcasts as long form. I love short form video. I think they're both wonderful ways for personal brands and also brands to get their message across and really showcase their voice and their quality and their credibility. I think with written content, some people can hide behind that a little bit. Like even myself, you don't really know, is this person knowledgeable or not? But I think when they're in a long form discussion, particularly, same with short form video as well, anyone can look at a script and read it out, right? I think in a long form discussion, it's quite revealing, and it allows people to really assess what's this guy or girl really about, what are their values, what are their knowledge, what's the depth of their knowledge. Is this someone I can resonate or relate to, which I think is really important. But I think now for young people, and just kind of circling all the way back, and industry professionals, anyone working in business or finance, I think a personal brand now it's not optional, it's everything. And I think those that can build that personal brand alongside their career will open up so many opportunities for themselves. And it's always in ways that you almost don't imagine or don't envisage. And that's kind of a good thing, right? You kind of think, if I just build this personal brand, and what I mean by that is like following and, reputation and all these different things. And in your knowledge area, you never really know what's going to come about in terms of an opportunity. For young people, a great phrase that I learned, or a tweet, or I can't remember where I read it, was build something and people will come, right? In terms of networking, rather than message someone and say, can you spare a bit of time? Can I pick your brain? Can you spare half an hour for a call? Immediately, that's a suck on their time and energy, right? What you want to do, and I see so many young people get this wrong, is you want to go and offer value, right? Even now when I get pitched, on LinkedIn, things like that, for like video editors and things like that, can I make a video, can hire me, that type of really aggressive, offer. Someone emailed me with a video of me that they'd edited off their own back, and put it, spent the time and effort, email me with, hey, Eddie, I've just produced this video for you. I'd love the opportunity to be your video editor type thing. And I'm just like, that is just so refreshing and awesome that someone's showed their value up front, in terms of the actual what they can do, rather than ask me, can I get hired and things like that. They've showcased their talent and their ability, which is the way that young people should, approach networking, right? Before, no one would. Why would anyone message me? I'm just a standard student, studied economic. Nothing special about me. But if you build something, people will come, and they'll want something from you, or they'll think of a way to collaborate or things like that. So when you build something of value, you attract the people that you want, basically. So for young people, if you're a student or you're in university or just graduated even, there's never a bad time to start. And it can be in just showing your personality as well, like being well-rounded as an individual, showing your expertise in different areas that don't have to be finance. If you play sports, or you're a chess champion, like all of these things are really interesting, because if they look you up, you're going to have a finance degree, you're going to study at, this university, you're going to have worked in M&A, and they're like, wow, this person's like really well-rounded, is a great person, is obviously knowledgeable, and has skills and personality as well. That's the person I want to work with, right? That's of huge value. Yeah, you've got to do the tick boxes of applications, spring weeks, things like that. But if you can do all of those things and build a personal brand, like I'm hiring that person on the spot, right? Because they're interesting, they've got charisma, whatever. For people that are in the industry that either just graduated, that are working, or mid-level, associate level, something like that, all the way up to CIO, PM, everyone is so interested in building their personal brand now. The demand for kind of expertise of how do I actually get my message across? Because I guarantee the people that I've met, they are just insanely smart. They've worked at Brevin Howard or, BlackRock or Blackstone or, Citadel or Jane Street, these really top firms, and they struggle with getting their personal brand, but there's an interest to do so. So you got to think, okay, if I'm a young person or even junior level, if these people are interested in building their personal brand or social media profile, which is again, influencer, dirty word, then surely there's something there, right? If they're billionaires or, very successful traders and investors, if they're interested in building their online presence, there must be, something interesting. Otherwise, of course, they're not going to spend their time there. So for, mid-level and up, kind of senior people, there's never a wrong time to start to build that. Because I not even guarantee, like, you have expertise that people want or want to hear about, you should start.
You touch on such a good point about adding value rather than asking for something. And that, as a mentor to so many people breaking into finances, when you reach out to people on LinkedIn, great example, it's rather than asking for a coffee chat, asking for their time, it's just something different, a fresh perspective, sending them an article that's related to their company or their take on a deal. I think it's more refreshing, as in your case, and it also shows that you're willing to think outside the box and you're not just copy pasting the same outreach email as part of your process. And I can relate very similarly in terms of adding value. And with personal brand, I think it's really interesting coin, because when you start in a bank, especially, you're a small cog in a big machine, and at times you're almost discouraged from standing out. Don't wear anything flashy, don't really speak up, learn the wheels. You don't really have a right to express your opinion until you really have a platform and knowledge and skills to do so, especially on client meetings. However, on the other side of the coin, keeping up with financial markets and news, and in my case, I was starting a blog, did give me a platform, which I was doing for fun and to give back to people looking to break into finance and to save me time from, again, explaining the same CV and cover letter process to so many people. But then weeks after I quit my job in M&A, funnily enough, that platform enabled Financial Edge to reach out to me with content creation. So it just speaks volumes as to our same experience, having just trickled content out there for the reason that we found it interesting and have some interest in it. It opens up doors automatically. And while you don't necessarily see if people listening to this are still working in finance, you can't measure, you can't tangibly see the benefit of content, it is snowballing. And then once you really focus in on it, and like you take it to the next level with your data analysis and posting really high quality videos, I think there's just such potential to open up so many doors that people, when they start their career in finance, don't necessarily see opening up in the future. And I think you're a perfect illustrative case study of just how far you can push that boundary. And as we wrap up this podcast, one question I'd love to ask you is, where do you see yourself going with content in the future, in the next few years? And also finishing up with a question on banks, and do you see content used more so by banks and finance institutions in terms of attracting talent, retaining talent, and engaging clients and audience alike?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. And I'll just start with Creative Capital. I'm trying to build a new age media company that can resonate and, drive huge attention and engagement. So it's twofold. It's helping large institutions communicate their views and get their research and expertise out to the world, because that makes the world a better place for sure. And then helping also, well, it's free maybe, and the startup scale-ups who have phenomenal products that would benefit the world. So just like Financial Edge, with Felix, I've spent hundreds of hours on that platform. And I think if every student or young person or even young professional had access to that, wow. I mean, I wish I had that when I was 17 or 18, right? But that's a common thing, right? Oh, I wish I had that earlier because it's so valuable. When I want to partner with brands or products that I see really, really huge value in, Felix is one of those that I think, this could benefit so many different people. The challenge is people need to know about it, right? So that's a big problem. But it's the same with the retail investor. There's so many cutting edge products that are coming out, even if it's I say cutting edge, like systematic trading for retail and more sophisticated things like that. But it's even just education around ETFs, responsible investing, and the financial products that can actually secure your financial future as an older person or into retirement. There needs to be more education around that. So my big mission is very much to give that education and market commentary and awareness to great products, great stories, great research, and more analysis for everyone. But in doing so, making a lot of my stuff free, right? Like LinkedIn, perfect point that you raised was add value and ask for nothing back, right? That's such a powerful thing that's been able to drive my growth. Even if it's like, buy this product, do this, do that. If you build a good enough reputation, people will want to buy your product just because you're associated with it. So ask value, build something, ask for nothing back, and people will come. Like, I can guarantee that type of thing. So yeah, where I want to go with this is just produce the content that I would love to consume as a young person or as an industry professional. And then onto the banks and hedge funds and all of that, adopting content creation. I'm probably one of the most knowledgeable people around that because, some of them are my clients. And yes, content is going to be king for all of these big finance firms. But there's, again, like any competitive advantage, the ones that really take it seriously and invest in that, cutting edge, pardon the pun on the podcast, cutting edge, production are going to win. And the payoff for that could be huge.
And you see more and more so that accelerating, because a great example, I think we've already mentioned this, there was an infamous trailer of a big bank that was released, and it was just so disillusioned for what a day as an investment banker is like versus, we've all been there and we all understand that's not quite the case of yoga at lunchtime and finishing at 5 p.m. So I think that for me was such a good proxy of how behind the industry is with content, and yourself and with Creative Capital bridging that gap. Do you think that's going to open up more opportunities for banks and financial institutions alike?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. I think anything in content, the content that resonates with people is authenticity more and more. Yeah, you can have a high polished video and like you can talk into a camera with a 4K camera and blah, blah, blah. But it's really that human side and the authenticity of like, a day in the life, what it's really like, Yeah, there's good things, but there's also bad things. And the more authentic you can be, the better. And it's going to resonate with more people. I think with any like B2B marketing or anything like that, people sometimes forget that they're still speaking to people, right? B2C marketing is very much around like people and users and things like that. But the people that buy products or, are clients of hedge funds and things, they're still people, right? And if you can stimulate that engagement, then you're gonna, you see some great examples already of the likes of Blackstone, for example, and BlackRock that produce some pieces of content that are just wonderful and they resonate with people. And it's just the net payoff of that because of social media and media is the amplification is huge and the payoff can be exponential. If I asked you now, what outside of finance, which brands do social media or do media right, you'll be able to ring off 5 or 10 names, right? And that is kind of such a valuable thing because whenever you have to make that purchase decision, you're always going to resonate with that brand that does it right or has a good, authentic story to tell. So yeah, finance is heavily regulated. A lot of it is reputation. A lot of it is fear of stepping out of place, which is completely valid. I think what you'll see is more big financial institutions pick those names or brands or influencers, whatever you want to call them, knowledge partners that are trustworthy, that have a great reputation, and then there will be no one else because the risk is far too high. But if they can find these people that also align with the brand really nicely, then there's a great opportunity for both parties.
Well, it's clear that your mission with Creative Capital is designed to address that current gap and the mission to empower finance professionals to be better educated about markets, and also your clients to understand how to use content to resonate with their audience, with their customers, and again with their prospective future employees. So it's really interesting world to see what's out there. But it's been a real pleasure to pick your brains about all things finance and content. I wish you all the best with your next steps at Creative Capital, and thank you once again so much for your time, Eddie. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. No, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Cutting Edge. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. It helps us out so much so that we can continue to build our podcast and deliver more episodes just like this one.